Hi, Lanny. How you doing?
Good afternoon.
Yeah, you too. So you brought in this old engraving. Where did you get it? What's the story?
It was from my father's side of the family. Have no idea where it came from.
Okay.
You call it DeAngelis is the name of it?
Yeah, it's a pretty famous scene. It's by Millet, M-I-L-L-I-S, and The Angelus is the title of this piece. Again, I was talking earlier, I don't know if you're here, about how there would be one print that would be produced over and over and over again. It kind of became a cultural icon. This is one that did, but this is an earlier ended piece of that. The painter was in France.
Correct.
And it would have been, without researching it, 1885?
Mid-1800s.
Okay, yeah. His original paintings sell for 20 million, somewhere in there. So, he's no schlock. But it just, it comforts people in their homes when they see this scene, especially when you look at the Montana homestead movement or the people in the West. They were out every day farming in the fields, and they had to stop for their nightly prayer hour because they worked late into the night usually. On the back, I noticed there's a name. You didn't know where it came from, but it says Higgins. Is that Higgins House or?
We've seen that. We cannot make a connection.
Okay. It's not the artist, and it's
No.
definitely not the print. Okay, here it says, painted by J.F. Millet, L'Angelus, etched by Charles Waltner. Okay, so it's an etching, and how you make an etching is, if you're an artist, you take a sheet of copper or steel and you scratch the image into the plate. That was done by the etcher, not by Millet. And so they had the painting or a good rendition of it before them, and then this expert etcher etched it into the plate, and then boom, they're in business. They started inking that plate and running these prints.
Sure.
Generally with an etching, you'll see actually a relief where that plate has been pressed into the border, and it may have been there before it was taken out of the frame. You can see a little bit. Well, that's a frame mark there, I guess. But you see what I'm saying. This would have been weld in as opposed to the border being raised a little bit. I'm getting my grubby mitts all over it, which is not good because it's got a little grime on it. And how you would clean this is the archivists and the art restorers have powder bags, and they wipe all that grime off with powder bags. Meaning almost like a talcum powder.
I see.
So it could be cleaned, and it should be framed, or this terror is going to keep going on it.
Sure.
And I like that it's a Millet, so almost then you're looking at the valuing. It would be like, okay, it's not the original painting by Picasso.
No.
It's not a hand-signed Picasso print, but it's a high-end French Merlot Picasso print. Everybody's going, what is he talking about, Picasso? But I mean, people can identify in the marketplace easier with a Picasso print than a Millet print. Well, it's not the painting. This is so famous. I think it's in the Louvre. And it's not hand-signed by Millet, but it's still a good rendition by an engraver in this condition, worth about $500. So, okay.
Right.
Thank you, Lanny. Hi, Gene.
How you doing?
Yeah. Happy 4th of July, man.
Thank you.
Okay. That last guy's print soiled me. I got to clean off a little bit here. Yeah.
Already soiled, I guess.
That's neat. It's a cabinet photograph of Annie Oakley. Is your family an Old West family, or?
Kinda, but my grandfather picked it up at either the Chicago World's Fair or the St. Louis World's Fair when she was traveling with the Wild Bill.
So she signed
Western
it
show.
for him?
Yeah,
That's
I think
neat.
it's her real autograph too. I had somebody else look at it once.
I've seen these cards that she signed in. It looks like it. I mean, it's if it's a forgery, I haven't taken the time. A little disclaimer here. I'm not saying it's her signature, but it sure looks like her style of handwriting. Yeah. Well, what I love is that he got it from her. You should write that up and keep it with this. This is the quintessential Western photo, and there are all these auction houses that deal in Western photography. West Cowan's auction house in the Midwest, Heritage in Dallas. They have sales that have nothing but Annie Oakley, Buffalo Bill, Geronimo, all day long, and they'll sell these portraits for thousands of dollars.
Wow.
If this weren't signed, it would be still a $1,500 portrait. What it is, it's a cabinet photograph, which was the kind of accepted format for photography in the 1880s and 90s. It's an albumin egg white process that the paper is printed on. A little bit later, it'd be more black and less sepia and soft. It would be more of a silver print later on. But man, look at her medals. You know, I mean, one of those medals would be worth $30,000 today. I wish she'd grab some of those from her. But being autographed, you know, I would say if you looked at an autograph of Annie Oakley, just a little clipped signature or on a card, it would probably be $1,500. But when you throw them both together, I think that I haven't checked on these this year to see what they're selling for.
I had a guy tell me years ago, he ran it on the internet, and he said one sold like it for 10,000, and then he said, but once one sells, then they all come out of the woodwork. So
no, that's not true about the woodwork, because they're too rare to come out of the woodwork. You know? Yeah, unless you live in Annie Oakley's house.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you where you can immediately look it up. Go to ha.com, Heritage Auctions. Go to their auction results archives, and boom, it'll light up like a Christmas tree. You'll see where these have sold. And I would be a little more temperate. I'd say 4,000 to 5,000, 4,000 to 6,000. Yeah, but I haven't done the research yet. But it's got nice clarity. It hasn't faded down. People have kept their fingerprints off the surface, so the salts aren't leaching into the albumin. So yeah, it's a Western treasure. I like it, man. Thanks. So hi, Marlene. How are you? Where did you get this old sampler?
Well, it's been hanging in my mother's home for several years. It has a name on it, who it's done by.
Harriet Iden or Dryden? Iden, I believe.
Iden, I think.
E-Y-D-E-N.
It was,
who was probably a little girl in 1824.
Well, it said she was 10 years old when she did that on June 16th of 1824. And no one in the family, when my parents died, know of this name. So we know, nobody knows where that came from.
It's not a family name in the genealogy.
No, no. So nobody knows where that came from.
Oh, good, then just sell it.
Well, I could do that too.
The kids don't care.
No, they don't.
No, I'm just teasing you. Well, it's a beautiful thing. It's American folk art, and this is a forum where there are people that are looking for these continuously. They're marketable because there's so much written about them, and they're auctioned quite frequently. The origin of samplers in America, in early America, is young girls had to be taught womanly arts. You know, well, if I said that to my 16-year-old daughter, she'd probably hit me in the belly. But it's true. They at a young age of 10 or 12, they would learn to, you know, their legacy of life. They would do needlepoint. They would learn all these arts, and hence they would practice their needlepoint with alphabets and numbers. And then, have you read this to tell me?
I have, but I haven't read it recently.
It's always got a beautiful slogan. Would you attempt to read it?
Well, I'll have to hold it.
Yeah, I'll hold it, and then you read, because you have an eloquent voice. So.
To those who love me, may I prove sincere in action, faithful, and in human clear. To you, my tender Father dear, I owe a grateful heart which does in duty bow. May this new humble peace now favor me. And he pronounced as done, both clean and neat.
That's kind of odd. Well, it's, in a way, you know, that's part of the beauty of the samplers, is they have those poetic verses or scriptures, but it shows you the character of people living in America in the 1820s. You know, this little girl is doing tribute to her father and her obedience to him. Again, my daughter would punch me in the stomach over that. But no, the market for and then you look down in here and there's froctoring or embroidering down in here. You know, you have the old colonial home here with cherry blossoms around it. You have the emblematic basket here. Basketry is a big art form of this era. You have birds, and you have this beautiful little figure here with the girl and the butterfly and the two pine trees, you know. So the marketplace, this is on homespun fabric, by the way, and a lot of these girls would make the backing as well. They would weave it, which would be part of the artistry of it. So long story short, if you look at the marketplace on these, it's in the higher end Eastern houses. It would be Skinner's, Freeman's, Christie's, Sotheby's. And the more florid this is here and the more elaborate the slogan is, or the more heartfelt, the more the value goes up on these. And so you know, the frame on this is a later 1920s piece. It's got some acid backing. I would lift it out of here and get it into a better frame without any acid on it. And then, and I think actually the acid has taken, and the sunlight have taken some of the colors out of the reds and blues, you know. So get also some archival glass on it. And then these sell at auction for $2,000 to $3,000 to $4,000, depending on the oomph of this and how touching this slogan is. I say this one's right in the middle, 3,000, somewhere in there.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, Chris.
Hi.
Is that Christine?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So what did you bring in? Oh, shame on you.
This is a set of mugs that my parents bought in Great Falls on their honeymoon 61 years ago.
That's a sip and dip, huh?
They bought it at a jewelry store, and my mother couldn't remember
did
how
not.
much they paid for it. Yes, they did. She saw it in the window of a jewelry store
Really?
on the main street in Great Falls and just had to have it.
Yeah, okay. Well, Great Falls at the time, what year is this,
1948.
1948? Yeah, it was actually a pretty cosmopolitan city in the West. You know, they had was the jazz club there that had all the high-end black entertainers in it.
Yes.
There's actually a PBS documentary on that club. But also at that time period, we had the Air Force Base there, so there, you know, all these things were flying in from around the world, and you know, a young Air Force guy would like something like this, as did your parents.
A young couple.
But as you see, you know, it's a 6-mug set. It's ceramic, and it's made by the artist named Denard, D-E-N-A-R-D, which isn't a factory. I would say these are almost home produced in in somebody's chicken coop with a kiln. I mean,
It's kind of, they're poured, aren't they?
they're ceramic poured. Yeah, it's a white ceramic ware underneath it, you know. But the first beer, there's this great torch singer in a gown and her gloves, and then she has another beer and another beer, and oh man, there she goes for it. You know, she's doing the whole striptease there. So you know, I think that they're really fun. You know, it's kind of the kind of thing that was a little bit irreverent because the GIs coming out of the war had seen everything and they wanted to have a little fun, and that's why everybody in Great Falls and Butte and Montana had a bar in their basement, and you know, they'd lived the rough life and they wanted to just kind of you know, enjoy life a little bit. So these beer mugs, you know, I've never seen a set. You know, I don't think I've ever seen one of them, and the set, it would be so rare to have together. It would have to be in your family china cabinet all these years. You had a lot of splaining to do, the people who came over, yeah.
Spent a lot of time in the attic. My sister and I played with them up
Really?
in the attic. Not a good idea.
Go play with your nude mugs. So, all right. Well, I like it. I like your style. Anyway, I would say each would be, you know, if I had one of those in my shop, people are going to say, "Oh, get out of here! You couldn't get that for it." But I'd put them out at $100 each, just because they're fun and they're really nice vintage, especially down in California and all the hip antique stores down there. It'd be $125, $150 each. But when you have the whole set, people watching this are going to say, "No way!" But I say $1,000 for them. Yeah. And I like them. Can I have them?
No,
Oh, okay. All right.
they're mine.
All right. All right. Well, thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Hi, Elsie.
Hi.
Tell me about your hat before we look at your object. Were you in the service, or was your
Yes, I
husband?
was. I was in World War II.
Were you a wave or a
I
whack?
was a Navy wave.
Wave. I
and
called that.
I repaired aircraft instruments and aerial cameras and things like that.
Wow. That's cool.
So,
Well, happy 4th of July.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah. Were you overseas, or were you in the
oh
States?
no, they didn't take us overseas way back then.
Yeah. So you should have worn your uniform today.
Oh,
You look great in the blue.
No, I don't think I did. We did get it.
Yeah. Well, it's neat. Thank you for your service. I appreciate it. Tell me what you brought
Well, this is really not a monetarily good antique, except that it belonged to my mother. And you can tell by its condition it was well used.
in.
And she puts a little note on there that the little granite pan is on another shelf somewhere. And when they distributed her items, that it just wasn't the two didn't get together.
Yeah. So tell me what its purpose was. You had flame down here, right? So would you put, would you put a
I don't
alcohol
believe so.
source
I
under
don't
there?
believe so. I think they just brought the hot casserole to the table, and it was just a means of passing the food at the table.
Okay.
And that just kept it warm.
I'm trying to think if you could ever find an insert for it.
I
I
haven't
doubt
been
you
able
could.
to. I
Yeah.
mean, as her little note says, that she says Curtis, which is her husband, gave this to me on our first Christmas present
Oh, nice.
after we were married.
So let me guess when that was. Don't tell me when they were married. Were they married about 1912?
Well, not too bad. It's 1910.
Oh, geez, I am so good.
I don't know. Well, anyhow.
Yeah, well, I like it. You know, probably the actual casserole was cooked in that little graniteware pan.
Yes,
And then,
yes.
you know, with mitts, they'd throw it in here, then serve with this for the elegant table serving of the time period.
Right.
They're moving out of the Victorian period and getting into the arts and crafts, which then would become the modern and deco period. So there's a little bit of this florid repoussé work on the top. This is made out of steel with nickel plating. And then these are ebony, the ebony finial and the ebony handles. So they were really trying to dress it up. You know, in the colonial era, they put an ebony on all the good Revere stuff, you know. Anyway, it's kind of a unique serving piece. You know, I have appraised collections with millions of objects, and I had to do the pots and pans too. You know, every little county museum has a room full of this stuff. But it's a fun, beautiful, unique old thing, and I'll lay a value on you, you know. But as you said, it's more for the fun and the memory and the yeah. So yeah, if I had it, I'd put it out at like 75 to 120.
Yeah, well, you know, I just kind of thought it was different.
Yeah,
That's all.
yeah. Well, thank you so much,
Yes.
and thanks for being a wave. That's good. Hey Ed, how you doing?
All right.
Good to see you. So you brought in some guy stuff here. I like the looks of these. Let's go with the first piece. Is this old mitt that you have? Do you know anything about the history?
No,
on where it
I'm
came
just
from?
kind of a collector and pick things up over the years. Have no real idea of where they're from or.
Right. Well, that's you know, this mitt was made when there were men playing baseball. I mean, if you got burned in on that, your hand would hurt for a week, you know. So, but it's pretty early. It's made by Rollins, who were one of the main manufacturers about 1910. I say it's circa 1910. Another way you can tell that is this buckle system. You know, it doesn't have a roller on it. About 1930, they came in with rollers on the gloves. This isn't a first baseman's or a cat. Is it a catcher's? It's got to be a catcher's mitt, just because it's so flat. It's like, yeah. So I think that probably a catcher's glove of the period, if I remember seeing the auctions on these, is a little bit better than a fielder's glove because there were less of them. And I just love how it's, you know, in the old days, things were so simplistic. You just relied on whether you had guts or not. You know, you didn't need a big fancy mitt. You just did it. The auction houses that deal in this, you know, there's several of them that get these up into higher prices. You know, there's like Leland's in Chicago, Heritage Dallas. I keep going back to them because they do everything, you know. But this mitt, probably in the condition it's in, it's real supple, and it's not been, you know, torn or damaged too bad. I'd say it'd be about $300, somewhere in that region, just on the strength of how early it is. So, okay? All right, good. And then you have a kind of a beer lottery / prize game.
Right.
Tell me how it works when you plug it in. Have you plugged it in and does
I
it
have.
work?
It does. The motor works. I've got a rubber band on it instead. I mean, there's definitely not all original.
It's coin operated, 5 cents.
5 cents. You drop the nickel in, starts the roulette table spinning.
Okay.
And then when you push the plunger, it stops and determines your prize.
And you win steins of beer.
Or packs of cigarettes on the other side.
Oh, okay. For the kids, huh? Yeah. It's, you know, by the date of it, I say it's 1920s. And one of the reasons I come up with this is this silhouette cartoon it's a style after John Held, who he was a cartoonist in that time period. I'd say late teens, early 20s. Out here in Montana, in Butte, Missoula, Anaconda, there were row after row after row of bars. Like you go downtown on Woody Street and there's the Garden City 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, and and the Sunshine Bar. And so because there were so many bars, there was a lot of competition. And so people would bring in bands, they'd have all kinds of gaming devices. Later, you know, when this was made and was in a bar, wherever it came from, do you know what it's?
I believe here in Missoula.
Really? Yeah, yeah.
I actually found it in a building in between rafters where it had evidently
I love that.
might have been stole and broke into, and
I love it when that happens. Yeah, well, yeah, see, the end is off, so they're probably
Right.
going to the coin box, maybe.
Right.
Oh, there's money in there.
yeah, there's a couple nickels in there.
All right. And then what's this do?
That's the plunger that
Oh,
stops it.
oh, okay, when you go like this, gotcha. And then it's got a maker's name here, Bally, who later became one of the big pinball manufacturers. I think they're still in operation, but they also did slots too, yeah, coin slot machines. So, okay, what else about it? I like that it's a dice game, that makes it worth more money. In the 1950s, these were all outlawed, and even these little guys, they didn't smash them with sledges like they did the slot machines, but the police would confiscate them and beat them up. So this one, you know, value on it, I wish it had the end. There are a few auction houses who deal in gaming devices. These are called coin ops. But if it had the end, it'd be worth $700 to $800, somewhere in there. As it sits, it's probably worth $400. So, but it's fun. It's a neat thing to have. So.
Thank you.
And it's good that it's by Bally. You know, anything Bally or Gottlieb or those or Mills is always good. So, all right, thanks for
Thank you.
that. Yeah. So you said your mom had it for quite a few years.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And what did she say about it?
I think it was a syrup pitcher
Uh-huh.
for pancakes, and it's
But I
just-
mean, where did she get it?
well,
That's what we always want to know is the background. You know, things are so fascinating. If you could
it's-
just, you know, time lapse on where they went. And
probably her mother. I bought the family home, a home my dad built, and so I
Right.
inherited. The stuff just stays there. We
Uh-huh.
have treasures.
Is that here in town? Or?
Yes, it
Oh,
is.
nice. Yeah.
And
Well, call me. You know, I'll come over and dig through your house for
right.
free. Yeah.
Oh, we have stamps from the Depression.
It's always fun to go into the family homes because that's where
Is
you
it?
find layer after layer, generational layers of stuff. You know.
Been to my house.
Well, this is a really nice one. It's a lead crystal, hand blown syrup dispenser. And how old is it? It probably dates to the late Victorian era, 1890 to 1910. I say hand blown because it has this dimple on the bottom, which is a pontil mark, P-O-N-T-I-L. And a pontil is where the glass blower broke the pipe away. Then it's been fitted with this, it's a pewter top, almost like a beer stein. And so it's a cast, you know, kind of a pewter metal, which has then been gilted or silver washed. So, you know, it's just a beautiful decorative piece. You know, you'll see them at antique shows along with caster sets, cruet sets, and little tableware. But they're popular and they sell for about $75, okay?
Okay.
All right, and then these are, they're not of great value, but they're beautiful. You know, in about 1920, most of the elegant homes in America, even like the Sears craft houses, were having this sort of a door handle put on their interior doors. You know, they're just made again of crystal, and they have a brass fitting, and it would be for an interior bathroom door handle or a bedroom door handle. And you'll see those at shows for $35. But I think that they're reproducing these now for home builders and home restorationists. I don't even know, you might be able to buy them at Lowe's or Home Depot. You might check, just because they're popular and the old houses had them. So let's, tell me about your shirt.
My shirt
love
comes
it.
from the 1960s, I think, and it was my sister's, and she gave it to me before I took a southern Panama trip, thinking that it would go, and I get a lot of compliments on my shirt.
Wearing
Yeah,
that
it's
in
still
Panama
really
would be like
well.
wearing a kilt in Scotland. You know?
Yeah.
No, it's
Yeah.
really, I like it.
I
It's
like
fun,
it
yeah.
too. I like it, and a lot of people get a lot of joy out of it, so
Yeah,
it's nice.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for wearing
Oh,
that.
thanks.
Okay. Gosh, why don't we do the picture first?
Well, the picture came out of my mother's home. She was born in 1909 in Denver, Colorado. There is a sticker on the back from a framer in Denver. And I've always been curious because it does have a signature, but as you can see, it's in a different language.
It's hand painted, yeah.
But the signature also, I don't know how you identify Oriental signatures.
Great websites on the internet, and they're there. If you look at Japanese woodblock signatures, you know, you'll see, but you have to, like, you'll go umbrella L, and so you'll have to go through 100 pages to find umbrella L. But this is signed. It's signed in a kanji style signature over here.
Kanji style meaning?
It's just Asian characters.
Okay.
And you know, believe it or not, it's not because I mean I am kind of stupid about this sort of thing, but it's hard to tell Japanese from Chinese paintings of this era. It's a watercolor with some assemblage on the trees. They've glued some foliage to the trees.
Oh, I didn't realize
and
that.
it's not probably by a famous artist. You know, you can always tell if a painting, if you're in a junk shop and you see a painting and you go, God, that might be a master, I should buy it. You can tell by if it's simplistic or not. This was probably knocked out for gift stores, decorator stores. It was probably brought home from Japan or China. I say probably China. At the turn of the century, I'd say 1910, 1920, the turn of the 20th century. So it's not worth a bundle because it's just a tourist piece, but it's charming and it's got history, and you know,
I like
$60, $70.
Okay.
Somewhere there. Okay.
All right, thank
So
you.
we'll set this
Thank
over
you.
here.
And then I've always wanted to know, because I don't know how to identify glass.
Okay. It's amethyst glass, and if you look through it, you'll see quite a bit of the amethyst color on it. And then the interior has been frosted, and it kind of falls within the category, frosted, and then it's also got an iridescence to it, which we'll take all those individually. But so it's kind of in the school of Depression era glass. You know, it's cast American glass. It's in an amethyst color, which came about a little later. Earlier on, we saw green and we saw pink, but amethyst came in more around the wartime. And then they either sandblasted or acid etched the interior. And then they went with this iridescence, which, as you know, it's the old story. Tiffany saw the artifacts coming out of the deserts in Egypt when they were doing the archaeology, and there are all these ground mineralizations that made them look rainbow colored. And so it became popular about 1910 when Tiffany started doing his glass in that iridescence, and it must have carried over to the commercial end of things to where the Depression era glassmakers used it on their better pieces. So because it has that, it's a better piece. It's a neoclassical form. You know, it's that wonderful bulbous low squat form. It's worth $75 to $100, somewhere in there.
All right. Well, thank you.